Good Shabbos, everybody. Sorry if I sound a bit like a castrated frog this morning, but I'm getting over a bit of a cold. So, in this week's Torah reading, Parashat Lech Lecha, God establishes a covenant with Avraham. What is the essence of a covenant? Covenant is a pact. It's an agreement. So what does God tell Avraham? He says, I will make you exceedingly numerous. Your name will no longer be Avraham, but it will be Abraham. For I will make you the father of multitude nations. God promises that he'll be good to Abraham's descendants forever. Not only that, God also throws in the land of Israel. And what does God demand of Abraham? He demands that he and his sons be circumcised. That's what he demands. But is that it? One ritual commandment? Now, it may be that we only have one ritual commandment here because the Torah hadn't yet been given to the children of Israel. When God affirms the covenant with Moses, God makes it clear that the deal is that we are to obey all of God's commandments in exchange for doing so, we will be the Bach Habana, which means we will be God's treasured people, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Circumcision isn't specifically mentioned, it's just one of those commandments we're expected to keep. Now, when we think of the commandments that define us as Jews, the commandments that make us God's holy people, we tend to think of the ritual commandments. We call them the theological commandments. The commandments that are called Bein Adam Lemakom. The commandments between people and the omnipresent. Makom, by the way, is another word for God. Bein Adam Lemakom means between man and God. In addition to circumcision, commandments such as keeping kosher and observing Shabbat and the holidays and praying 3 times a day are there. And yet, there is an entirely additional set of commandments that are not only as important as the ritual commandments, but I believe that are more important than the ritual commandments. And they are the commandments Bein Adam Lechavero, between people. We call them the ethical commandments, the moral commandments. There's a difference. You've got the theological, the ritual and theological commandments between man and God, and you've got the ethical and moral commandments which are between man and his fellow man. Bein Adam Lechavero. Do not murder, do not steal, do not gossip, negotiate honestly, do not have dishonest weights and measures. These are the laws between man and his fellow man. Bein Adam Lechavero. So how do we know that the commandments between people are more important than the commandments between us and God? I always ask this question to students who are in my class. I say, which are, after I explain, which in your opinion are the more important commandments? The commandments between man and God, or the commandments between man and a fellow man? And 99 times out of 100 they'll say, well, it's obvious, the commandments between man and God. No. That's a Christian concept, a Muslim concept. Parshat Noach. There are a couple of different stories, very famous stories. One in which people treated each other horribly, and one where people offended God. One was a violation of the Bein Adam L'Chaveiro, between man and his fellow man, and the other was a violation of the rules of the relationship with God, Bein Adam L'Makom. The question I want to ask you is, why did God destroy the world with a flood? The Noah story. The story tells us the earth became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with lawlessness, and when God saw how corrupt the earth was, for all flesh had corrupted its ways on earth, God said to Noah, I've decided to put an end to all flesh. Kate Kol Basar. The earth is filled with lawlessness. Because of them, I am going to destroy the entire earth. People were acting so outrageously towards each other that they didn't deserve to be called humans. Now, the Torah doesn't elaborate on what horrible things the people were doing to one another, but from God's very harsh response, we can assume that it must have been truly terrible. Failing to treat others kindly, failing to obey the rules, Bein Adam L'Chaveiro, that should be basic decency to everyone, Torah or no Torah. So thus they were deserving of the ultimate punishment, driving God to decide to wipe them all out and start over. So that's one story. But then we have another story in the same Torah push. We have the story of the Tower of Babel. And in the Tower of Babel story, the people seem to be getting along just fine. Everybody was happy. They got along with one another. They lived in communities. They spoke a common language. They cooperated with each other. The offended party in this story was God. And they said, come, let us build us a city and a tower with its top in the sky, to make a name for ourselves, else we shall be scattered all over the world. It's very interesting that Ibn Ezra, who's a 12th century Spanish rabbi, said that the builders of the tower hoped that their city and their tower would prevent them from being dispersed. In other words, they loved each other, they wanted to be together, they wanted to remain as a community. But this was not God's will. How did they know this? Could this have been possible? It was God's plan for people to be dispersed. And the people of Babel somehow knew this. But they didn't want to go. They wanted to stay together. And so they chose to defy God's will. It's not clear why they thought that building themselves a tower that reached the sky in some way would foil God. Some say they wanted to overthrow God. They wanted God out of the picture. But who knows? In this case, it was a violation of the commandment Bein Adam L'Makom, between people and God. In other words, the people were directly rebelling against God's will and they wanted to overthrow God. So what did God do this time? Did God smite them? Did he wipe them out? No. In this case, God didn't smite anybody. Yes, God still gets his way. I mean, after all, it's God. But while offending God may have consequences, the consequences weren't nearly as severe as the consequences for treating others of God's creatures badly. God simply confused their languages so they wouldn't be able to work together as efficiently. And the Torah tells us that is why the place was called Babel, because the Hebrew word for to confuse is levalbel, to confuse. And by the way, just in case you are thinking, in case the grey matter is turning there, just so you should know that there is no etymological connection between the English word Babel and the story about the people babbling their languages or to each other. So we see here what's going on. We see God's different reactions. And then we see another example of the primacy of ethical commandments over ritual commandments in next week's Torah reading. Very interesting. Vayera, it says in the first sentence, it says the Lord appeared to him in the terebinths of Mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of his tent as the day grew hot. That's how it opens up next week. In other words, Abraham is engaged in what may be the highest possible religious act. He's talking to God. The Midrash tells us that God visited that day because it was the third day since Abraham had his circumcision. Most painful day. Thankfully, I don't remember, but that's what they say. And God was doing the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick. And what happens? Right in the middle of his discussion with God, we're told that 3 visitors show up. And what does Abraham do? He breaks off the conversation with God to attend his visitors. Can you imagine in the middle of talking with God and saying, whoa, hang on a minute, God, I just got to go and take care of these guests and I'll be back when I can get back. I mean, can you just imagine that? And that's exactly what Abraham does. And we're told that God doesn't seem to mind it at all. The covenant between God and the Jewish people includes not only ritual commandments, but it especially includes the commandments between interaction of people. If you want to know if someone is religious, because everybody throws that word about, oh, Rabbi, I'm so religious. You tell me all the time, so religious. When I ask them what that means, they don't really know, but they tell me that they keep all the holidays. When I say, which holidays exactly do you keep? And they tell me you keep Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I say, what about the other holidays? Well, I'm not quite there yet. But then people seem to have this thing that they have to tell me. I never forget I was at a shiver in Saint Laurent some years ago, and after the service, a man comes up to me and he says to me, where are you, Rabbi? And I said to him, I'm at Sharet. And he said, what type of synagogue is that? I said, it's a Jewish one. And he said, no, I know that, but what type? I said, I don't know what you mean. He said, well, is it Orthodox, or is it conservative, or is it Reform? I said, what does it matter? Why? She said, well, because I'm Orthodox. I said, you're Orthodox? I said, let me tell you something about Orthodoxy. If you are really Orthodox, you would never admit you're Orthodox, because somebody who's truly Orthodox is never good enough for himself and is always trying to better himself, and therefore they would never admit it. There's a whole analysis that has been done on this. But what I want to get to is, if somebody is a religious Jew, don't just ask, do you keep kosher? Do you observe Shabbat? The really important questions to know if someone is truly religious are questions such as, do you pay your workers on time? Do you feed the hungry? Do you clothe the poor? Do you visit the sick? Do you avoid gossiping about others? That is how to tell who somebody is truly religious. I had a rabbi that once used to say, and I've told you this many times, he used to say, when teaching kashrut, he used to say, just remember one thing. It's more important what comes out of your mouth than what goes into your mouth. People are so busy checking hefshit, checking labels, while they're gossiping about other people. The Talmud tells us that when a Jew dies, the very first question they will be asked is, did you conduct your business affairs with integrity? Not, did you insist on 100 levels of kashrut? Did you avoid using the phone on Shabbat? And was your shechita Mahadrin or Lubavitch or whatever it was? No. Who do you think is more treasured in God's eyes? and a better keeper of the covenant. A Jew who truly loves his neighbor as himself. A Jew who is kind to others. A Jew who walks humbly in his ways and helps the poor. Or is it someone who brags how orthodox they are as their tzitzit fly in the breeze, praying 3 times a day, hacking and clapping on their chests, making sure they eat the most glatt of glatt kosher,